Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 332. Thank you for tuning in and joining me. I hope you guys have had a good week. Gonna pick up where we left off in the last podcast. Still got a lot to cover. We're talking about Obamagate still. And over the last 24 hours, we got some new documents that have been declassified. This is quickly turning into one of the biggest political scandals in American history. This scandal is making Watergate look like small potatoes. And Watergate, if you really understand Watergate, this is all the same situation. This is a issue of rogue elements within our intelligence community, using our intelligence community to basically control the American people, to control the electoral process, to divert the will of the American people, that basically the intelligence community is controlling our entire country. And and we're not a democracy. We're not a country that is controlled by we the people. This is something that the intelligence community is doing by manufacturing these scandals, by using the media to direct the American people and their will, and the what is it when in the Constitution it says that that the will of the people is basically, it is the consent of the governed, that those who govern at the consent of the governed, is what I think that's the Declaration of Independence, is that those who govern at the consent of the governed, that we, the people, we control the process in our representative democracy by giving consent to those who govern over us. And as Edward Bernays said, and as what's his name, who wrote Manufacturing of Consent, I forget his name. Anyway, but that's what they're doing. They're manufacturing the intelligence community along with the media, working with the media, are manufacturing the consent of the people by manufacturing these scandals and things like what we're going to talk about today. This Obamagate scandal is just like, this is some crazy stuff. And a lot of the stuff I've known about and have been talking about for nearly a decade. Many people have, but it hasn't been widely known. And still, this isn't getting the type of media that it should get. But let's get into this stuff. And I want to talk about the media and journalism, and some journalists who have been covering this story for the last 10 years. One of them is Michael Shellenberger. Michael Shellenberger is, he's just a real journalist. I mean, he doesn't care about, right or left or what, his side, thinks, or what his side wants. He's just, true to the game and just gives you the facts, and he's a true journalist. This is a journalist that you can trust, Michael Shellenberger, and a lot of people do trust him. He was one of the journalists when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and then he releases the Twitter files and all of the things that were going on with Twitter during the 2020 election, the covering up of Hunter Biden's laptop, and how Twitter was censoring people who were talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, what was going on there. Michael Shellenberger was one of the journalists who Elon trusted to give all these documents to. And he was a Democrat. This guy's not a Republican. It says right here, his political affiliation is the Democratic Party up until 2022, and then he became an independent and, like many, left the Democratic Party. Michael Schellenberger is an American author and journalist. He is the first endowed professor at the University of Austin, serving as a CBR chair of politics, censorship, and free speech, winner of the 2023 Deo Journalism Award. Schellenberger is considered a prominent heterodox thinker whose writing has provoked debate on topics including climate change, homelessness. Schellenberger also founded the online newsletter Public, which is the second largest Substack. So he has the second largest Substack, and Michael Schellenberger has been on this story and is on this story of Obamagate, Russiagate, Spygate. He's been on it, and he's on the left. This guy's not a right winger at all, and he's one of the journalists who has been over the last 10 years exposing Russiagate. Matt Taibbi. We all know Matt Taibbi. If you don't know who Matt Taibbi is, he was another one of the journalists who Elon Musk trusted to give the Twitter files to, and he was writing on the Twitter files. This guy's not a right winger. His politics are more aligned with the left, but he's been very critical of the Democratic Party. He's been on this Russiagate story for over the last 10 years. Matt Taibbi is an American author, journalist, and podcaster, former contributing editor to Rolling Stone. He is the author of several books. Taibbi has been a freelance reporter working in Russia. He's later worked as a sports journalist. So Matt Taibbi is not a right winger. He is more aligned with left wing politics, but a true journalist. He doesn't care, where the story leads. If this is going to lead to being critical of the Democratic Party, he's been critical of the Democratic Party. He's been critical of the Republican Party. It's just, a real trustworthy journalist, like an old school journalist, Matt Taibbi, and Michael Schellenberger. These are just, real good journalists, and they're both independent. They have to be independent because nobody's going to employ in mainstream media journalists like this, because the mainstream media is about propaganda. It's not about journalism. Aaron Monte is another. Aaron Monte is a Canadian writer and journalist. He hosts the show Pushback with Aaron Monte on the Gray Zone. He hosts the podcast Useful Idiots. He's Canadian. He's a left winger. He used to be a producer on Democracy Now! To show you how left wing this guy is. It says right here, he challenged the allegations of collusion between Russian government and the 2016 presidential campaign, and the extent to which Russia interfered. Aaron Mate has been on this story for 10 years. For the last 10 years, he's been reporting it. And though he's on the left wing, though he's more aligned with liberal politics, he's been very critical of what the Democratic Party did. I don't know if he considers himself a Democrat, but he's been very critical for the past 10 years of what these people did in the Democratic Party. And he should be. As I'm going to explain, if you're a Democrat, this should really upset you because this is hurting your party. So Aaron Mate, Matt Taibbi, Michael Schellenberg, they're all left-wing journalists, but true journalists that are not going to lie to the American people to cover up for the Democratic Party. They're going to tell you the truth, and they have been telling you the truth about Russiagate and Spygate for the past 10 years. Another one, Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is not a right-winger. He's more aligned with left-wing politics. He's on the left. Glenn Greenwald is an American journalist, author, former lawyer. In 1996, Greenwald founded a law firm called concentrating on the First Amendment litigation. He began blogging on national security issues. He became increasingly concerned about the attacks on civil liberties during the Bush administration, very critical of Bush in the aftermath of the September 11 attacks. He became a vocal critic of the Iraq War. Glenn Greenwald was the journalist that when Edward Snowden leaked all these documents that showed how the United States government was spying on us and using all these tools to spy on us. Glenn Greenwald was the journalist that helped Edward Snowden get that information out. Another left-wing guy. He's not a right-wing guy, left-wing guy. He's been critical of the Russiagate, Spygate narrative for 10 years, for as long as I've been talking about this. And these four guys are very involved in what is going on right now with the declassifications and the information coming out about the Obamagate narrative. Obamagate. Michael Schellenberger, Matt Taibbi, Aaron Maté, Glenn Greenwald. I have some clips from Michael Schellenberger and Glenn Greenwald in this podcast, and then in the next podcast, I have a lot of clips that we're going to play from Matt Taibbi and Aaron and Maté. But I just want you to understand that these guys have been on this story for over 10 years, and these are not right-wing guys. These guys, their politics are more aligned with left-wing politics. They're liberals, and they've been very critical of what Hillary Clinton did and what Obama did in 2016. This is Michael Schellenberg. I want you to listen to what he says.
This is another instance where you see the Democrats having projected what they were doing onto Donald Trump. The Obama administration was undermining public confidence in the elections, deliberately undermining confidence in the elections, and then accusing the Trump campaign of doing the very same thing.
So what he's saying that what the Democrats were doing in 2016 is what they were accusing Donald Trump of doing. I mean, that's inevitably whatever Democrats are accusing you of doing is what they're doing often. And that's what we found. They made all of these accusations and over and over again, threats to democracy. They're threats to democracy. Well, nothing threatens democracy more than what these guys did in 2016 under the Obama administration, the Obamagate story, and the meddling in the election. Russia didn't meddle in the election. These fools, Obama, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Clapper, Brennan, they are the ones under the Obama administration who meddled in the election. And at the same time, they were accusing Russia and Donald Trump of meddling in the election and threatening democracy. They were the ones doing it. That's what Michael Schellenberg says here.
This is another instance where you see the Democrats having projected what they were doing onto Donald Trump. The Obama administration was undermining public confidence in the elections, deliberately undermining confidence in the elections, and then accusing the Trump campaign of doing the very same thing. They knew that they didn't have the actual intel or any evidence to actually bring any charges against Trump because, of course, he didn't do any of the things they were accusing him of, but they were constantly leaking to the news media. And that was one of the things that we saw revealed today in these new documents.
So they were using the media, like we said last week, that's part of it. That this is Operation Mockingbird, that they leak stuff to the media, that the media has to take their word from it, from their unnamed sources. They don't have any way of verifying the information, but they print it, they put it in the paper. The Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, these are the papers of the intelligence community where they leak this stuff to these papers, these major papers, and then these papers write these articles, and then the talking heads on TV, they report on the articles that these papers have written. That's the way it works. That's Operation Mockingbird, and this could not happen without the media. And that's what you need to understand. That's why these journalists like Michael Schellenberger are so important, and Matt Taibbi are so important, and Aaron Mate are so important, and Glenn Greenwald are so important, because they're independent, they're true journalists, and they're not affiliated with the intelligence community media at the Wall Street Journal, at the New York Times, at the Washington Post. So they wouldn't be able to do this stuff that they did in 2016 without the media. The media is a very necessary tool to do what they did. All right, here's Glenn Greenwald. Why don't you listen to what he says?
This is, Megan, the kind of extreme abuse of power that is as threatening to American democracy as anything they've accused Donald Trump of doing. This is deliberate interference in our elections.
He says the exact same thing. It's like that he's taking notes from Michael Schellenberger, that this is what that they accused Trump of doing, threatening democracy and abusing power, and they were the ones threatening democracy and abusing power. He says the exact same thing that Michael Schellenberger says.
Abuse of power that is as threatening to American democracy as anything they've accused Donald Trump of doing. This is deliberate interference in our elections, using the secret parts of our agency, disseminating lies. And here's the problem. And this happens all the time, is when these intelligence agencies do bad things and people at the time stand up and say it, most of the evidence is hidden. So you get called a conspiracy theorist, or there's no evidence. The evidence only comes out years later, and by which point it comes out, like now, and you want to say, hey, here's the proof. Let's look at that. People are like, why are you talking about 2016? That was 8 years ago. True. We have so many other things. This is irrelevant.
That's exactly. At the time when this was happening in 2016, if you said, when the Mueller, or 2017, when the Mueller investigation started, and everyone's like, this is nonsense. Everyone say, oh, you don't believe our 17 intelligence agencies? This is conspiracy theory. Our 17 agencies said it. This is, Marco Rubio and the Senate Intelligence Committee said it. You don't believe the Senate Intelligence Committee and Marco Rubio? And now that this information is coming out a decade later, showing that everything was a lie, wasn't in 17 intelligence agencies that said this. These were 3 rogue agencies, and that they were, and the Senate Intelligence Committee was using the same intelligence from these rogue agencies, and now we're seeing the truth about what happened. Now people are saying, well, why are you going back talking about what happened in 2016, 2017? Because we're just getting the information now. And why are we just getting the information now? Because Trump was under a special counsel investigation for 2 years. They used the special counsel investigation, the Mueller investigation, to win back the House in 2018. Like honestly, I don't believe that Democrats, without that scandal and the Mueller investigation, that was the biggest issue in the 2018 midterms, which led to the blue wave that won Democrats all those seats, and Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House again in 2018. I'm not sure that Democrats would have won back the House of Representatives in 2018 without this scandal. The Mueller investigation was the biggest issue in the 2018 midterm. So they used this issue to win back the House of Representatives. So Trump's under a special counsel investigation for 2 years. They win back the House of Representatives, and then they start to the impeachment, and then there's COVID and Trump's last year, and then Biden is elected for those 4 years. So there's not going to be any declassification for those 4 years. And now in Trump's second term, in the first 6 months, now we're starting to get this information out. But there was no time to get this information out in Trump's first term, with the Mueller investigation, with Republicans losing control of the House of Representatives in the midterm. And then you have the Biden administration. Now is the time you're getting this information. But now is what Glenn Greenwald is saying, that now time has passed and people are like, well, why are we going back to 2016? We're going back to 2016 because this is our first opportunity to get this stuff that we're getting now. We didn't have the opportunity back then when you were calling us conspiracy theories and saying, you don't believe our 17 intelligence agents?
All the time is, when these intelligence agencies do bad things and people at the time stand up and say it, most of the evidence is hidden. So you get called a conspiracy theorist or there's no evidence. The evidence only comes out years later. And by which point it comes out, like now, and you want to say, hey, here's the proof. Let's look at that. People are like, why are you talking about 2016? That was 8 years ago.
True.
We have so many other, this is irrelevant. The media will not cover this, I promise you. And you know why? Because I consider, although the FBI and the CIA took leading roles in the Obama administration, the media to be the primary culprits. Without them abdicating their role of oversight of these intelligence agencies, of being journalistically skeptical of what they were being told, they were more eager than anybody to close ranks with Hillary's campaign and the intelligence agencies. They gave themselves Pulitzers for this totally fraudulent reporting. To this day, they're proud of the role they played, even though, other than, I'm sure, Russia did do some interference. Big countries interfere in each other's politics all the time. That was never the scandal. The scandal was the collusion between Trump and Russia. And even the extent of the Russian involvement was completely exaggerated to the point where we now question whether they really did do the hacking.
It's exactly right.
The problem is it's going to be...
I never believed they did the hacking. Because there was no evidence. There was never any evidence. And all they wanted to do is tell, Lucille, you don't believe our 17 intelligence agencies? No, show me the evidence. Show me the evidence. I never believed it. But now we're finding out, that the Russians probably didn't even do the hacking. They didn't even, all this stuff's coming out now. But he is absolutely right. The media is the primary culprit. This could not be done without the media working in cahoots with the intelligence community to do this. The media is as big of a culprit in this scandal as Obama himself. It could not have been done without the media. And that's why individuals like Michael Schellenberger, Matt Taibbi, Aaron Mate, and Glenn Greenwald are so important to this story because they've been doing the real journalism that these Mockingbird clowns at Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and Washington Post that they refuse to do. So everything that Glenn Greenwald is saying here is absolutely correct. Benny Johnson had Tulsi Gabbard on his podcast earlier this week. I think it was yesterday. And they start talking about Operation Mockingbird and what we learned from the church committee. I want you to take a listen to this.
The media being used as a propaganda mechanism. We saw it flatly. I mean, I think it's the smoking gun, quite frankly, of the Obamagate narrative and the Russiagate narrative.
The media
so baked in that the New York Times and Washington Post went and ran with it.
Don't forget the Wall Street Journal.
Part of Operation Mockingbird. Some would say that that's part of what we learned in the church committee, that the intel agencies were using media outlets as their mouthpieces, and that those mouthpieces would parrot the official narrative. And I wanted to ask you, is this operation still going on? Are you aware of the intel agencies working directly with media outlets in order to push prescribed narratives that may or may not be true?
It's something that we've already had to deal with, Benny, within this administration, where there are people within the intelligence community who believe that their will is more important than the will of the American people, and will weaponize intelligence by leaking it to their friends within the mainstream media with the intent of undermining President Trump's agenda. It is not one that he hasn't already talked about in every rally and town hall that he did throughout the campaign. I don't even know how many there were, but President Trump is enacting the very thing he promised the American people he would do in this election. So people in the intelligence community, they may agree, they may disagree. That's not the point here. As intelligence professionals, as people who work in the national security space, in the intelligence community, they are required to fulfill their mandate to their oath to the Constitution of the United States, and to the President of the United States, who was duly elected by the American people.
That's not what Chuck Schumer said. Chuck Schumer said that you take on the intelligence community, talking about the President of the United States, the executive. The intelligence communities are under the executive branch. Chuck Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, said you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways to Sunday to getting back at you. The President of the United States. They have 6 ways. The intelligence community has 6 ways to Sunday to getting back at the president of the United States, who they're supposed to be under. And it's not, we didn't only learn in the church committee that these intelligence agencies were leaking to these newsrooms and leaking to these reporters. They have people actively from the intelligence community working in these newsrooms, working as talking heads on these news stations that are actively intelligence officials, and they are in the newsrooms and on TV spreading propaganda that the intelligence community wants. Let's listen to what William Kobe, he's asked here by Frank Church. Take a listen.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
They submit pieces. They're writing the pieces and submitting the pieces to the journals. We do have people from the CIA on our payroll who are submitting articles in these newspapers. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post is what William Kobe says.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
That means yes. So we didn't only learn from the church committee about Operation Mockingbird, about these officials from the intelligence community leaking this stuff to the press. They're actually working in the newsrooms. That's why they're not gonna report on this, is what I'm getting to. And we're gonna get into what we just recently learned. But if you're wondering why you haven't, when we get into this stuff, if you're wondering why you haven't seen this stuff on CNN and MSNBC and CBS and ABC News, and why you haven't seen it in the New York Times, and why you haven't seen it in the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal, the reason why is because these newsrooms are complicit with the Obamagate scandal. That this is a scandal of the media. They wouldn't have been able to do what they did without the media. And that's why journalists like Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi and Aaron Mate and Glenn Greenwald are so important. These independent journalists who have been reporting on this stuff for nearly a decade, as long as I've been talking about this stuff. This is why these individuals are so important, because this is a scandal of our press. It's very important that you understand that. All right, let's get into some of this stuff. John Durham. Who's John Durham? John Durham was the special counsel. If you don't remember, so after the Spygate scandal came to light, Republicans controlled the House of Representatives. The House Intelligence Committee the chairman was Devin Nunes. And then Devin Nunes worked to declassify documents that showed that the Crossfire Hurricane investigation was started in the FBI. They had got FISA warrants on Carter Page, and they were using these FISA warrants to spy on the Trump campaign and all of these people that were connected to the Trump campaign. And then Jeff Sessions had recused himself from all things Russia after the article came out in the Washington Post saying that he had met with Sergei Lavrov, the Russian ambassador, as a senator. Like, that's a scandal, but Jeff Sessions recuses himself. And then his deputy attorney general appoints Robert Mueller as the special counsel, and then the 2-year-long special counsel investigation, why did it take 2 years for Robert Mueller to realize that there was no collusion between Trump and Russia? Because they wanted it to go on. Robert Mueller could have wrapped that investigation up in a couple of weeks. Could have seen that there was no collusion between Trump and Russia, but they kept it going for 2 years, again, because they wanted to use it politically to hurt Trump's administration in those first 2 years. And they used that investigation to win the House of Representatives and to have that blue wave that they had in 2018. But after Trump, he gets rid of Jeff Sessions, and then Bill Barr becomes the attorney general, and Bill Barr appoints a special counsel to look into all this stuff. And that special counsel was John Durham. John Durham is an American lawyer who served as United States Attorney for District of Connecticut. By April 2019, the Trump administration assigned him to investigate the origins of the Federal Bureau investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, into Russian interference in 2016. On October 2020, he was appointed special counsel. I think he was the inspector general before. He was appointed special counsel in 2020 by Barr from the Department of Justice. He previously served as assistant U.S. attorney in various positions. So he is known for his role as special prosecutor in 2005 destruction of interrogation tapes by the Central Intelligence, during which he decided not to file any criminal charges. So John Durham was the special counsel who Bill Barr appointed to looking to all this stuff. And all these people in the media, all these talking heads in the media who were working with the intelligence agencies to perpetuate the Obamagate scandal, Russiagate scandal, Spygate scandal, all these people in the media, when John Durham was appointed, then they sought to discredit John Durham. And even today, when Tulsi Gabbard is releasing a lot of this stuff, they're coming out and they're saying, well, John Durham looked into this stuff. He didn't find anything. No, that's not true. That's not true. I want you to listen to this talking head, Nicole Wallace, and listen to her discrediting John Durham.
The Durham investigation birthed thousands of hours of misinformation about decent public servants who worked on the original Russia investigation.
Thousands of hours of decent public servants. he discredited. Now look at the date on this. She's doing this report in 2023. This is in the Biden administration, and she's discrediting John Durham and his investigation, saying that he discredited these good public servants.
Investigation birthed thousands of hours of misinformation about decent public servants who worked on the original Russia investigation. It also represented a sort of twilight zone for this once highly regarded prosecutor who ran it, John Durham. There's also this reporting on Durham's, shall we say, radicalization to become a Russia probe truther. Mr. Durham
shall we say radicalization to become a Russian truther? Truther is the term that she used.
Durham. There's also this reporting on Durham's, shall we say, radicalization to become a Russia probe truther. Quote, Mr. Durham spent his first months looking for any evidence.
Now, what article is this coming? This is what I tell you. This is how it works. Who's writing this article? New York Times. New York Times writes this article because they're complicit. So they write the articles, and then the talking heads on MSNBC, CNN, then they report on what these reporters who are working with the intelligence community in the Wall Street Journal, in the Washington Post, in the New York Times, and they report on it as it's fact, some leaked information from unnamed sources in these papers, and they report on it as it's fact. So notice this is New York Times, okay?
Probe truther. Quote, Mr. Durham spent his first months looking for any evidence that the origin of the Russia investigation involved an intelligence operation.
It did.
Targeting the Trump campaign. Mr. Durham's team spent long hours combing the CIA's files, but found no way to support the allegation.
That's a lie.
The article also provides new reporting on the desperation by Barr and ultimately Durham when the probe failed to deliver, quote, scalps ahead of the 2020 presidential campaign season, quote. Mr. Barr and Mr. Durham did not shut down their inquiry when that search for intelligence abuses hit a dead end. With the Inspector General's inquiry complete, they turned to a new rationale. A hunt for a basis to accuse the Clinton campaign of conspiring to...
A hunt for a basis to accuse the Clinton campaign. Take note.
They turned to a new rationale. A hunt for a basis to accuse the Clinton campaign of conspiring to defraud the government by manufacturing the suspicions that the Trump campaign had colluded with Russia. Now, the caper could be described as almost entertaining in its brazen politicization or abject failure. But right now, as we all sit here, John Durham is an employee of Merrick Garland's, preparing a final report on, well, this.
So John Durham did become a employee of Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, he participated in the cover-up, his DOJ. That's, again, the reason why we're only getting this information now. And this is a scandal of Hillary Clinton's making. As I was explaining in the last podcast, and why, as Democrats, you should be upset, because I was explaining in the last podcast how the Democrats were in crises throughout the entire Obama administration. Tons of electoral defeats. That's what this article by Ezra Klein shows. Don't believe the Democratic Party is in crisis? Then read this tweet. November 4th, 2015. This is at the end of the year 2015, as we're getting ready to go into the year 2016, and the primaries were starting, and the Republican primary was starting, the Democrat primary was starting. Hillary Clinton was running against Bernie Sanders. The DNC was rigging the primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. If Hillary Clinton was so popular, if Hillary Clinton was so popular even with Democrats, why did Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the people at the DNC need to rig the primary for her to beat Bernie Sanders? Why was Bernie Sanders winning primaries like Michigan, and he would win, these primaries, and Hillary Clinton would get more delegates because they were piling on the super delegates, and Bernie Sanders was being disenfranchised, and his supporters were being disenfranchised throughout the entire primary. In the Republican primary, Republicans didn't want Donald Trump to be the nominee. The Republicans were working against Donald Trump, but Donald Trump had more support, and he was able to win despite what the Republicans were doing to him in that Republican primary. But the Democrats were in crises, real crises, not polling crisis like today. I mean, they're suffering the worst. The Democratic Party is suffering the worst poll numbers that they've had since we started taking polls. But back then, in November of 2014, back to this tweet from Roy Cooper that this article is focusing on, under President Obama, Democrats have lost. These are electoral. This isn't polling. These are real electoral losses. Democrats have lost 900 plus legislature seats, 12 governor seats, 69 House seats, 13 Senate seats. These are all electoral losses that the Democrats were suffering under the Obama administration leading into the 2016 election. Of course, Hillary Clinton was going to lose. But this was a trend that was going on going back to 2010 of electoral losses under the Obama administration. And like I said in the last podcast, they needed a candidate that was going to buck this trend, to turn this trend. But Hillary Clinton had a different idea of how she was going to buck this trend and turn this trend. And that was the Russiagate scandal, which became the Obamagate scandal. That's how Hillary Clinton was going to buck this trend of electoral losses and turn this trend around of electoral losses that Democrats had suffered going back to 2010, all these losses. And then in 2016, she loses. Oh my God, it's the Russians. Well, was it the Russians that made Democrats lose 900 plus state legislature seats? Were the Russians involved in Democrats losing 12 governor seats under Obama? Were the Russians involved in Democrats losing 69 House seats, 12 Senate seats under Obama? No. And the Russians weren't responsible for Hillary Clinton losing in 2016 either. She was following a trend. And her idea to buck this trend was the Russiagate scandal. And the reason that you should be upset, Democrats, about this is because right now, Democrats are suffering their worst polling numbers, their worst favorability since polling started. They're in the toilet. And what happened after the 2016 election when Hillary Clinton lost, there should have been some introspectives and asking questions. What is going on with the Democratic Party? Why are we suffering all of these electoral losses? And they should have looked at themselves and said, what can we do to change to make us more electoral, make us more appealing to the electorate? and what's going on with us? But that's not what happened after Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. They blamed everything on Russia, and they said that that's why Hillary Clinton lost. But if you will look at the history going back to 2010 of all of the electoral losses in the states, in the Congress, and looking at all of the electoral losses that Democrats had suffered, that would make you look at the trend and say 2016 just follows this trend. What's wrong with us? How can we change ourselves? What can we do to make us more appealing to the electorate? And that never happened. That never happened. And still, we're a decade down the road, and now they're suffering their worst polling numbers than they have ever suffered. And quite frankly, I don't think that they have a shot of winning back the House. They definitely don't have a shot of winning the Senate next year. But I think that the House of Representatives is going to be very hard for them to win, because again, the only reason that they had the blue wave and won the House of Representatives in 2018 and in Trump's first term is because of the Mueller investigation, the Russia investigation, that manufactured scandal that they created that contributed to the electoral wins that they got in 2018. And then in 2020, man, don't even get me started. So Hillary Clinton not only was a horrible candidate in 2016, her electoral defeat and her defeat in 2016 followed a trend of electoral losses that Democrats had suffered throughout the Obama administration, followed a trend. But she also had baggage because of her email scandal. What had happened is during the Benghazi investigation, Congress figures out that Hillary Clinton had set up a private server as Secretary of State in her closet in Chappaqua, and that she had a private email network that she was using to do state business. And Congress finds out, and then they subpoena. The Congress subpoenas all of her emails. They subpoena the hard drives. They subpoena everything. They say, we want to see everything from this private email server. So this was the scandal. Not only was she a horrible candidate, not only did her loss follow a trend of electoral losses that Democrats had suffered in the Obama administration, she had this baggage from this email scandal. And that's why she wanted to create the Russiagate narrative. So Trump would have a scandal to balance off her scandal, if you understand what I mean. And after the Congress figures out that this woman who is Secretary of State was doing state business on a private email server and network that she had set up in her home, they subpoena everything, all the hard drives, all the emails, and this is what Hillary Clinton does. Take a listen.
Hey everybody, it's Jake Tapper from CNN State of the Union and factcheck.org. Today we're going to take a look at comments made by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton about her private email server, comments that are contradicted by the recently released FBI report. Let's start with a comment she made to my colleague Brianna Keeler last July 2015. Take a listen.
Can you tell me the story of how you decided to delete 33,000 emails and how that deletion was executed?
Well, let's start from the beginning. Previous secretaries of state have said they did the same thing.
But you said that they did the same thing, that they used a personal server and while facing a subpoena, deleted emails from them?
You know, you're starting with so many assumptions that are.
She's such a liar.
Subpoena. There is nothing. Again, let's take a deep breath here.
I've never had a subpoena, Secretary Clinton said in July 2015. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Well, her campaign spokesman, Nick Merrill, issued this statement at the time saying, quote, she was asked about her decision to not retain her personal emails after providing all those that were work-related, and the suggestion was made that a subpoena was pending at the time. That was not accurate. So both Clinton and her campaign suggest that she was not facing a subpoena at the time that those emails were deleted.
Not only did she delete emails. Not only did she delete emails. Hold on. What's going on here? Let me get this back up.
Hey everybody, it's Jake Tapper from CNN State of the Union and factcheck.org. Today we're going to take a look at comments made by former Secretary. that were work-related, and the suggestion was made that a subpoena was pending at the time. That was not accurate. So both Clinton and her campaign suggest that she was not facing a subpoena at the time that those emails were deleted. Now, according to the FBI report, that is not true.
That's a lie.
Hillary Clinton received a congressional subpoena for her emails on March 4th, 2015. According to the FBI report, the email deletions that took place in the last week of March, sometime between March 25th and March 31st.
So not only did she delete emails, is what I was going to say. She took the hard drives from these 5 servers and she wiped them with bleach bit after getting a congressional subpoena. Like what Jake Tapper is saying here is that she got a subpoena, and the week later after getting the subpoena, then she starts deleting all this emails, wiping hard drives with bleach bit, hitting Blackberries with hammers, destroying everything that Congress wanted to see. Congress, who has oversight over her as Secretary of State, once they realized that this woman had a private email server, they subpoena everything and she starts destroying everything. And then she lies and says that I didn't have a subpoena.
At the time that those emails were deleted. Now, according to the FBI report, that is not true. Hillary Clinton received a congressional subpoena for her emails on March 4th, 2015. According to the FBI report, the email deletions that took place in the last week of March, sometime between March 25th and March 31st. That is after the subpoena. Today,
so she started deleting stuff and destroying stuff after the subpoena. So she had her own scandal, and this is what the FBI was. She was referred to the FBI. They opened up the investigation into Hillary Clinton. So they're investigating Hillary Clinton. So she creates the scandal, the Obamagate scandal, and tries to say that Trump was working with the Russians so the FBI could also open up an investigation into Trump. So the FBI was not only investigating her for what she did in obstructing justice, mishandling classified secret information through her private unsecured server. They were not only investigating her, they also had to investigate Trump on this manufactured stuff that she totally created. We played this clip also in the last podcast after WikiLeaks in the first day of the Democratic National Convention there in Philadelphia. WikiLeaks releases all of these emails from the DNC that showed that the DNC was rigging the primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. It causes this big controversy. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is the chair of the DNC, she has to step down because of this controversy because they were rigging the primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders, and all his supporters were upset. So the very next day, Clinton's campaign manager, Robbie Mook, he claims that we have information from experts that tell us that this is the Russians. And I asked in the last podcast, how did Robbie Mook know immediately that the Russians were responsible for this? And I have an answer to that question, but let's listen to Robbie Mook say that again.
Now it's Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook. Robbie, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So I have to ask, what is the reaction of the Clinton campaign to these DNC leaked emails suggesting that top officials, including the CFO there, were actively discussing ways to hurt Bernie Sanders in the primaries?
Well, I think the DNC needs to look into this and take appropriate action, and I'm sure that they will. What's disturbing to us is that experts are telling us that Russian state actors broke into the DNC, stole these emails, and other experts are now saying that the Russians are releasing these emails for the purpose of
experts. So the experts. So I asked the question, and unless I said, how did Robbie Mook know that it was the Russians right away? Who are the experts? You want to know who the experts were? The experts were CrowdStrike, a private firm that they hired. They hired these experts to tell them that it was the Russians. CrowdStrike. That's the experts that he's talking about here. And this scandal is so crazy, people. And don't forget, that Bill Clinton was caught while she's under investigation. Bill Clinton was caught on a tarmac having a private meeting with then Attorney General Loretta Lynch while she's under this investigation. And then after Loretta Lynch is caught having this private meeting with Bill Clinton on this DOJ plane on this tarmac, which they thought was private, a reporter realized what was going on, and he's the one who reported on it, but they thought they were having this private meeting that nobody would know. And then Loretta Lynch, she doesn't recuse herself. Jeff Sessions, after they write that article in Washington Post about Jeff Sessions meeting with Sergei Lavrov, the Russian ambassador, he recuses himself. I don't know why. He was a senator meeting with the Russian ambassador. I don't know how that's so scandalous, but he recuses himself. Loretta Lynch, when she's caught having a private meeting on a DOJ plane on a tarmac with Bill Clinton while his wife was under investigation, she doesn't recuse herself. But it causes this big controversy, and she says, well, I'm not going to recuse myself, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to defer to the recommendation of the FBI, of James Comey's recommendation. Then we find out that she's actually working with the FBI on their recommendation later. I've covered all that before. But everyone says that, well, if James Comey, if he was really working with Hillary Clinton and working for her, why did he reopen the investigation just days before the election? He reopened the investigation just days before the election because they found all these emails that she had deleted that they thought that they couldn't find. They found all these emails on a laptop that Anthony Weiner was using to sex underage girls. He had to inform Congress that he was reopening the investigation. James Comey didn't want to do that. James Comey didn't want to reopen the investigation just days before the election. He had to, because they found all these emails on a laptop that Anthony Weiner was using to sex underage girls. And his wife, Uma Abedin, who is now married to George Soros, we're getting ready to get into George Soros's part. Uma Abedin, who was married to Anthony Weiner, she was Hillary Clinton's basically right-hand woman. And she was married to Anthony Weiner. So all these emails were on Anthony Weiner's laptop that he was using to sex underage girls. So that's why James Comey had to reopen the case just days before the election. And now Uma Abedin is married to George Soros' son, Alex. This scandal is crazy. This is crazy if you understand what is going on. So let's get into what is going on and what we learned in the last 24 hours. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the chair of the DNC, who had to step down right before the convention in 2016 because WikiLeaks releases all these emails showing how she was rigging the primary against Bernie Sanders and for Hillary Clinton. This is January 17, 2017. So this is after the fact, just days before Donald Trump is sworn in for the first time on January 20th. She's doing this interview with CNN, and I want you to listen to what Debbie Wasserman Schultz says here.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference with the campaign, and because our intelligence community has unequivocally stated that Russia's intent was to influence the outcome of the election in favor of Donald Trump, I believe, one, that the investigation that the United States Senate is going to do into the relationship and interaction potentially between the Trump campaign and Russian officials, that's essential. Yeah. But I think there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by Russian interference with the campaign.
So the outcome of the election was affected by Russian interference. What about your interference? Why'd you have to step down as the chair of the DNC? Because of your interference. There's more evidence of your interference than any Russian interference, you witch. All right, so 2020, this report comes out on Fox about Debbie Wasserman Schultz and emails from, take a listen.
The document reportedly came to the attention of U.S. intelligence officials from Dutch intelligence. It included discussion of an email exchange between former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonard Bernardo.
Leonard Bernardo and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, an email change, and we get this from the Dutch, and the Dutch were spying on the Russians. So Leonard Bernardo, let's talk about who Leonard Bernardo is. First of all, and then we'll get into what the Dutch did and how we got this information from the Dutch.
It included discussion of an email exchange between former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonard Bernardo, an official with Open Society Foundations run by George.
An official with Open Society run by George Soros. Leonard Bernardo is an executive with Open Society, the George Soros Foundation. Okay?
Of an email exchange between former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonard Bernardo, an official with Open Society Foundations run by George Soros. According to the Times, Wasserman Schultz allegedly told Bernardo that then Attorney General Loretta Lynch would not charge Clinton with a crime for having the private email server. Wasserman Schultz and Bernardo have both denied even being in contact with each other.
So they told that Loretta Lynch would not charge. It wasn't even up to Loretta Lynch. Loretta Lynch was caught on a private plane with Bill Clinton, and she says she was going to defer to the recommendation to the FBI. She should have recused herself. The decision should have been made by her deputy, Sally Yates. The same thing that happened when Jeff Sessions recused himself. His deputy appointed Robert Mueller. But instead of recusing herself, after meeting on a private plane with Bill Clinton, Loretta Lynch doesn't recuse herself, and it doesn't go to Sally Yates. She says she's going to defer to James Comey, and then she's working with James Comey on the recommendation. But in this email chain with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who has to step down as the DNC before the chair of the DNC before the DNC because she's meddling in the primary to rig it for Hillary Clinton. In this email, she's talking with this executive from Open Society, from George Soros Open Society, and they're saying that Loretta Lynch is not going to charge. There won't be any charges on Hillary Clinton. This is a huge scandal, people.
Exchange between former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonard Bernardo, an official with Open Society Foundations run by George Soros. According to the Times, Wasserman Schultz allegedly told Bernardo that then Attorney General Loretta Lynch would not charge Clinton with a crime for having the private email.
How's she know that Loretta Lynch wasn't going to charge Clinton with the crime? This is just, wow.
Schultz and Leonard Bernardo, an official with Open Society Foundations run by George Soros. According to the Times, Wasserman Schultz allegedly told Bernardo that then Attorney General Loretta Lynch would not charge Clinton with a crime for having the private email server. Wasserman Schultz and Bernardo have both denied even being in contact with each other, suggesting the document was a fake attempt by the Russians to throw a wrench into the U.S. intelligence community. A spokeswoman for Bernardo sent me a statement today. I want to read part of it. Quote, Bernardo has never spoken with or corresponded with Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz in any.
Sure. Okay, so this is in 2020. This report comes out, and 2020 is an election year. Trump's still president of the United States. This is during COVID that this report comes out. All right, what did we learn today or yesterday in these recent declassifications? Take a listen.
Good evening. Welcome back to Finnerty. Glad you're here. I'm Rob Finnerty, live from Washington, D.C. I'll tell you why in just a moment. Maybe you can guess. It turns out that Russia was so much bigger than we ever imagined. It turns out that Russia was orchestrated by Hillary Clinton and her campaign and Hillary herself. It was coordinated with media think tanks and the legacy media in the intel community to push Clinton over the finish line in 2016. It didn't work. But if Trump did win, they had a whole backup plan.
Insurance policy.
They pin this whole thing on Donald Trump, which is exactly what they ended up doing. Newly declassified documents released just today by the Senate Judiciary Committee expose a Hillary Clinton conspiracy, a Democrat conspiracy to fabricate the Russia collusion hoax and the carefully crafted lie that Russia helped Donald Trump win the 2016 election. It was always a lie. They did not. Why would they want Trump in the Oval Office?
Why would they need to?
And not Hillary. They know Hillary. They've known the Clintons for 35 years at that point. And to all of you who were mocked for years for supporting Donald Trump, you have been vindicated tonight. Here is Soros Foundation Senior Vice President Leonard Bernardo in an email writing to a Clinton advisor named Julia that, quote, it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil on the fire. Hillary is hardly good-looking as far as credibility is concerned. In another email, a Soros Foundation vice president says, quote, Hillary approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering in U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing emails. Think about that. And now think about
that should distract people from her own missing emails. The emails weren't missing. She deleted them. She destroyed them while she was under a subpoena.
For the last decade, the last 10 years. And now we have what looks like direct evidence that Hillary Clinton's campaign and Hillary herself came up with the Russian collusion narrative from the start, and then Hillary rubber stamped it. Hillary approved of it in coordination with George Soros' Open Society, which really isn't that open, is it, George? And the reason? Well, Hillary Clinton was an absolutely horrible candidate and an even worse person. The email scandal was killing her campaign. Remember when she was asked about her private email server and those 30,000 plus emails that suddenly just disappeared?
While under subpoena.
That's all I could say. I'm not, I have no idea. That's why we turned it over.
You were in charge of it. You were the official in charge. Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something?
No, with bleach, bitch. With bleach, bit. Witch.
I don't know how it works digitally at all.
No, you wiped it. You wiped the servers with bleach, bitch. You witch.
I do not have any.
You did not try.
Ed, I know you want to make a point, and I can just repeat what I have said.
You know how it works, Hillary? You hit the delete button. And
no, she used bleach bit.
By the way, most people won't delete 30,000 emails in a lifetime. Hillary did it in a couple of days. Hillary deleted that server and joked about it in public, and when the media asked her questions, she mocked the media and got away with it. She said she wiped the server with a cloth. At the time, that was a big scandal, and Donald Trump was surging at that time in the polls, but nobody was talking about that. So the Clinton campaign needed to act, so they invented this lie.
Absolutely.
No, Russia hacking the election to elect Trump.
And they all played along in the media. I don't have very much time. I just find it really crazy that, like I was telling you, the reason that Comey had to reopen the investigation in just days before the election is because they found all of these emails that she thought that she had deleted on Anthony, the laptop that Anthony Weiner was using to sex underage girls. And his wife, Uma Abedin, is now married to George Soros' son, Alex, who is running the George Soros Foundation. But this all goes back to Ukraine. And we're going to get back into this in the next paragraph, because you have to understand. Now, when you go and when they impeach Trump for the first time and you go and look at the transcript of what Trump is saying to Zelensky in that phone call, he's talking about CrowdStrike. When he says, I want you to do me a favor, he's not talking about Hunter Biden or an investment. He talks about, we're going to look at it in the next podcast. He's talking about CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike was the private firm who Hillary Clinton hired, who Robbie Mook says experts tell us that it's the Russians. He's talking about this firm who they're paying and they're hiring. And this goes back to Ukraine. This goes back to Ukraine and Ukraine's and George Soros's foundation. The International Renaissance Foundation is a Ukrainian NGO founded by George Soros. It was founded in 1990. This goes back. This is about Ukraine. Look at this article right here. In May of 2015, George Soros says he is ready to invest. When you invest something, you're looking for a return on your investment. George Soros says he is ready to invest $1 billion in Ukraine if West helps. So George Soros is involved in this because he's trying to secure his investment. And he knew that he could secure his investment better with Hillary Clinton than with Donald Trump. We'll get back into this in the next podcast. I have a lot more that I want to share with you guys, but this is the biggest scandal, biggest political scandal that I've ever seen in the United States, and this is only the beginning. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.